Today, I'm joined by someone who has quietly helped redefine how the world thinks about sleep. Not as rest, not as comfort, but as performance system. My guest is Alexandra, co-founder and VP of Brand and Marketing at 8 Sleep, the world's first sleep fitness company. And this is important to remember. Alex and her co-founder did not set out to build another mattress. They set out to solve a much bigger problem: how to actively optimize human recovery, night after night, using data, physiology, and real-time environmental control. Today, 8 Sleep is trusted by some of the highest performers on the planet, including Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Olympic gold medalists, CrossFit champions, etc., and leaders across the sport environment. Entertainment and technology who understand that recovery is not optional, it is strategic, something that I always say. What I respect most about Alex is that her work sits at the intersection of science, storytelling, and impact. She helped build a company that moved sleep from something we track passively to something we actively train, adapt, and personalize. And now 8 Sleep is taking things even further. With AI-driven sleep modeling, menopause-specific solutions, and a roadmap towards medical-grade applications that could fundamentally change how clinicians and individuals approach sleep health. This conversation is not about a product. It's about sleep as biology, sleep as recovery, sleep as a foundation for performance, resilience, and longevity. And as I always say, adaptation. Alex, welcome to Becoming Limitless.
No, thank you for hosting me. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I think this has been a long time coming. There's so much to talk about, and I know your time is so limited. You're always jumping from one geography to another.
Yeah,
so
one time zone to another, which
Exactly.
is the only brutal thing about traveling.
I know, right? I know. But I'm happy that you're here. And I think we'll go straight ahead with a couple of things that I'm eager to discuss with you regarding just, as you know, I've been with the brand for a couple of years now, and I know everything there is to know about it. And my focus has always been on the region, because our sleep sort of routines are slightly different than the rest of the world. We were talking just off the air briefly about that, and you had some interesting ideas about how people sleep here. I think you've already noticed in the data that we are different, right?
Yes.
And the other more interesting thing is that coming up now is Ramadan.
Yes.
And that also has a huge impact on people's sleep schedules and quality overall. So what is the number one thing when it comes to this region, from a sleep perspective, from a data perspective, that sort of surprised you?
It truly is how late people go to bed. Like
Right.
that is the thing that stands out. And we see it, as you mentioned, we see it in the data, which is fascinating. And I think we're not the only company to see that in our data. So it's really proven that people here go to bed later than any other place in the world on average. But it also ends up being that they sleep less.
Yes.
Because it's not that they're waking up later. It's
Right.
just that they're sleeping less, which ultimately impacts that quality of sleep, as you know, because if you're going to bed after midnight, just the quality of sleep you're getting is worse. And like you said, in Ramadan, that's heightened.
Yes.
It's even beyond.
Yes.
And would love to know and understand if it's one thing influencing the other, meaning are people adopting these habits? Because, you know, Ramadan's just, you know, something that they know it's coming every year, but then it's hard to change your habits after you've spent, you know, a month going through that cycle of going to bed so late. And so maybe it just becomes part of the norm.
Well, some people are more intentional about that, and they plan it properly. So they even plan to change their circadian rhythm a little bit. With lighting, with how they eat, with who they spend it with, etc. And they're able to make that shift a little bit. And some of them are even more intentional by taking like little naps throughout the day to help them with it. So it improves the quality of their sleep overall slightly. As a general rule for us in the region, we sleep late. It's cultural, it's tribal, it's part of the weather that we experience here. Yeah. So we stay away from the heat as much as possible. And therefore, a lot of our social interactions and even our regular interactions, not necessarily from a sort of a partying side or that side of things, it's not that.
It's like family life
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah,
it's more
everything
evening.
lifts into
Yes.
that. Like even young kids sleep later.
Yes,
you know?
that's actually very interesting
Yeah.
because it's true. You definitely see kids out and about much later than
Yes.
you would like in America.
Exactly.
Right? It's more normal. It's definitely cultural, which is an advantage when you arrive. We landed last night at like 10 p.m. and then you can have dinner at 11 and it's
I know.
totally fine because
Yeah.
the restaurants are still buzzing.
Yes,
but
yes.
it's very telling. It's very clear in the data. It's clear also when you're here and you live it and breathe it and you just see how the cities are so alive very late into midnight and past midnight and people are still up early and working.
This whole experience, this whole phenomena of the region makes 8 sleep's existence in this part of the world even more important, I think.
Definitely.
Because if you're getting whatever amount of hours, those minimum amount of hours, because of the cultural impact or influence, you might as well get the best quality possible.
Yes,
and
you have to maximize them.
Right,
yes.
Exactly. And this is where 8 sleep comes in, right?
Yes.
I have seen it consistently over and over again. And I'm sure you hear it all over the world, but here specifically is that people have transformed the quality of their sleep, not necessarily the length, as because it's cultural, but the quality of the sleep with their pod.
And that's why we started. I think a lot of people don't know, why did we come up with inventing this crazy product that is managing your temperature while you sleep? But that is exactly where this all started. Mateo, who's my co-founder and he's my husband as well, and he, this was maybe 2013. This was way before there were all these wearables that we all love and use now. We're tracking sleep. No one was talking about sleep really in health. And he started looking into that because he had his own problems with sleep. He had restless leg syndrome and it started just becoming worse, as you get into your 30s and you start your sleep changes and suddenly you can't be that young lawyer as he once was, just spending 48-hour shifts at the office.
Right.
And what he realized is that, he was sleeping not the 8 hours, but he was looking for ways to maximize the 6.5 or 7 that he was getting. And he always talks about that, right? Is there going to be a day when we will understand the biology of sleep so well and be able to apply technology to understand every individual's needs that change every night as well? And then optimize the hours that they are spending. And so maybe we'll make you feel like you got 8 hours when you actually slept 6 hours.
Right.
And make sure that you're not getting the detrimental effects of not getting the full 8 hours that are recommended right now.
Right. And the 8-hour thing is like the 10,000 step thing,
yes.
right?
It's like, who measured that?
Exactly.
Right? It's kind of what we know now about sleep science, but as you know, that's one of our obsessions is how do we understand that?
It doesn't apply to everyone, right? I mean, some people need more, need less, etc.
Yeah.
So the key message that you've said, and I always say also here in the region, is that it's not the length, it's the quality of the sleep, right?
It's the quality.
Stop with the amount and rather look at the smaller metrics, your deep, your REM, see how that's being optimized. I'll mention a little later on about the stuff that 8 Sleep does for me that I love, but that's really where I see across the board with people is that these numbers over time become better. It's not like you go to sleep on your 8 Sleep for the first time and it's like, whoa,
Correct.
It's like over time, like these minor changes that are incredible. And then you look at your data, because you mentioned wearables. I think it's a big deal. Wearables are more of an anxiety source rather than a support for most people, that is.
Because it's just data, But they're the absolute perfect companion for us, right? I think what we find that is fascinating is 80 to 90% of our user base has a wearable.
Right.
And so the wearable is the ultimate proof of what our product is doing.
Exactly.
Because they've been wearing it for a long time and then they suddenly get an 8 Sleep pod, they put it on their bed, they start sleeping on it, and they start seeing those improvements in the data that this third-party company that has nothing to do with us is showing to them. So it's the proof. And it's because what we did is we bottled up science in a product. We didn't invent these thermoregulation needs that the human body has.
Right.
That's how we are and that's how we function. And what we're doing with technology is just making sure that we can maintain your body within that range of temperature set point that you have to be able to get the deepest, most restful sleep. That's what we're really doing is we're not inventing something new for the human. We're helping the human body go through the process it should be going every night.
Absolutely. And these minor changes in temperatures that people, I don't think they understand how much of an impact it has on the quality of your sleep. It could mean the difference between you waking up refreshed and ready and your lymphatic systems have released everything and then you're ready for a good day. And we're talking about like minor difference in temperature, right?
Yes, it's like a 2 degree Celsius range. It's very, very minor. And that's why sometimes, for anyone who has our product and opens up your app and you see all of the temperature changes that it's doing during the night, you're talking about decimals.
Yes.
It's like this adjustment within a very narrow range. And that's why it's so difficult for just like your home thermostat to keep you at the proper temperature, because it cannot be that precise.
We have that issue here, by the way, and I always speak about it, is that you cannot rely on, so they say, for example, when I say there's thermal regulations within the pod, well, AC, well, yes, the AC, but the AC works usually within 2 or 3, sometimes 4 degrees.
Yes.
So by the time it switches off, when it reaches the temperature, is that it's a little bit too cold. And then when it turns, but when it's ready to be turned on, it will be too warm.
Yeah.
So you end up kind of oscillating between these two kind of variants, and it's not great for sleep. I mean, I experience it, and even in certain places here, the AC is more than not just temperature. The mold, the dust,
you
all
go into the dryness of the air,
exactly.
Over humidity. Yes,
right.
I live in Miami, so it's very similar. Really, AC everywhere, AC at night, and you're right. It's not the perfect answer. We sell in a lot of countries and regions as well where AC is not even an option, meaning people's homes just don't have it because they tend to be more in like kind of mild weather. So we see it even in California in the United States where most homes may not have an AC, but then they have heat waves.
Yes.
Or they have moments of the year when it's just very cold.
Yes.
And so having a way to just regulate the microclimate that you're sleeping in is not only more cost efficient, but it's better for the body and more effective.
And this I say this year, but it's 2025, you made that even better, right? Because we were, I was blown away by the pod itself being able to regulate my temperature, but then you added the blanket that does that. So it's like a proper cocoon. So, how did you come up with this? Like, what is it that, I think it's just a natural progression. For me, it just seems natural, but it just made it so much better. Do you feel that from the data that you're seeing that people are benefiting even more by having like almost wrapped in temperature regulation?
Yeah, it depends. As everything with what we build, what is so fascinating is that it's very personal. And so people who we see love the blanket the most are people who are at the sort of extremes of the temperature range, right?
Yeah.
So they like it very cold or very warm. I'm one of those. I sleep at like +4, which is, we have a 20 level range from -10 to +10. I sleep in the warm level,
right.
And so I love the blanket. And also people who like something a little bit heavier on their body,
right.
Because we have the same temperature regulating technology in the blanket, and it extends the temperature that you have underneath your body to the over and around your body. And so of course it has a little bit of weight to it. So it feels a little bit, don't want to say all the way like a gravity blanket, but it has some weight. And so some people may not like that. Some people may like a very fluffy light comforter or just a bed sheet. And that's what we love about building our products and where these ideas come from. It's usually just from hearing from people, what are they looking for? And we know by now that not every product or every feature is going to be for everyone in our user base or everyone in the world. So we're at the stage of the business now where we're building for specific segments. So whether that is people who want it super cold, and so we're trying to build like an even more powerful pod, or people who are going through menopause and we want to build a feature for them, or people going through pregnancy, which we're developing now. And so it's like just fascinating how the same platform that we build, we launched in 2019 with the pod, has allowed us to then build on top of that and tackle specific human needs, because we have that data.
Yeah.
So we know like, okay, what are the areas where we can optimize further? And that's how we started getting into developing features for women. It was all through the data.
Right.
Our clinical team, which we have in-house, they run all of our clinical research. They validate any product that we develop, every algorithm. And what they saw is that our autopilot feature, which is the intelligence behind the pod, it's what it's using AI to understand how you sleep, what you need, and adjust your environment in real time. They saw that autopilot was having a much better effect on improving sleep for men than women. Mm-hmm. And so they said, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And funny enough, that clinical research team is all women. I think now there's one person who's a guy, but it used to be all women. And so they said, like, wait a second, like, this is not okay. Like, we have a varied user base. We need to make sure that we're improving the sleep for everyone. So let's look deeper into that. And of course, like most things in science, women are understudied, and there's not really a lot of research into how women's sleep is different than men, particularly in the space of temperature regulation. And we are very complex in that topic. We just have different needs. Our bodies vary throughout our cycles every single month as we go into perimenopause, as we go into pregnancy from the first to the third trimester. There's a huge difference in
Huge.
our temperature needs. And so they just dove deep and said, okay, we need to study this. We need to understand what we can do to actually deliver the same effective sleep optimization for women at different stages of a woman's life.
Amazing.
Because a woman at 50 is very different from a 25-year-old. A woman who's 25 taking birth control pills is different from someone who's not.
Right.
Hormone replacement therapy versus not. And so it's just a very interesting world where we feel that technology, not just like ours, but I think there's a lot of companies building in this space, can have a massive impact.
And this is where autopilot plays a major role, right?
Yes.
You're investing quite a bit in that at the moment.
Yes.
And I think it's phenomenal. I wanted to dive a lot deeper into this because I think it's one of your many next big thing that is coming, but it's phenomenal. And then last year we did a bit at the Menopause Summit here in Dubai where we talked about that. And it was like ooh and ah across the whole audience about having that ability, have the possibility. Most people were not aware. And because it's a major thing, especially with hot flashes and people going through peri or menopause, and how much it disrupts their whole day because of getting too warm at night and not getting the right sleep, and then it affects every aspect of their lives. So it's a pretty important thing, and I think
it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge, right?
Yeah,
because it affects everything. It affects the whole family. It affects everyone, right? We always think that we're in silos, but we're not. The way you wake up in the morning and the way if you're refreshed, your reaction to things
is totally different. Yeah,
right?
your mood, yes.
To your partner, to the people you work with, your kids, to whoever, everything is different. So it has these, it has a ripple effect that it goes across different aspects of life, from a minor thing as temperature regulation of 2 degrees Celsius. Like it blows my mind, and I think it's amazing. It's not just that is trying to fix a human being's sleep. Now you're being a lot more focused on even gender and different stages of life.
Yes.
Because with men too, with andropause and those that are on TRT or not, like it affects so many aspects of their, right? So
we see people also going through some medical conditions or going through illnesses. An example that's very common we hear from our user base, like people will reach out and say, my partner is going, or a family member is going through chemotherapy.
Right.
And that's disrupting their ability to thermoregulate. Sure. And so the pod is really helping them reconcile sleep. So it's like, oh, that's amazing, right? And we didn't build the product for that use case, but now we're starting to think, how do we serve them and their needs? And is there anything specific that we can do? Right. And so you're right, it's about that real optimization across all of these smaller segments, but that ultimately that's what the technology can do and a non-tech product cannot do.
Right. And this part of the world, unfortunately, for many years, menopause and anything related to menopause was not talked about, not until recently. So this is just the perfect time for the pod to be kind of tailored to that conversation, because I think it's super important. It's our mothers, our sisters, our
it's half of the world that will go through it, right? Yes.
So and it's and it's not talked about. Yeah. So thankfully things are changing. In this part of the world, sometimes because of cultural or sort of societal things can slow down certain conversations. But now everything is changing, and I think it's amazing what you're doing in that perspective. I hear that there is sort of news of FDA approval and others. Can you tell me about that? I don't know much about that.
I think that there's that part for our technology of, as I was saying, applications that will help people going through certain conditions. And so last year we filed for that regulatory body in the US, it's the FDA, to be able to identify and diagnose sleep apnea in the first place. Right. And so sleep apnea is a condition that also has a huge impact on the quality of people's sleep, but it also can lead to other degenerative conditions because of how it's not allowing your brain to receive the right oxygen level while you're sleeping. So it's pretty terrible. And it's heavily underdiagnosed. Yeah. So people may not know they have it. They may think that they're just snoring. Maybe your partner tells you, like, you snore a lot, or you know, you have a certain breathing pattern, but you have no idea that you actually may have sleep apnea. And there are sort of all different types of sleep apnea as well within the umbrella of apnea. And our technology has that potential to detect it. So if you're sleeping on it, you just suddenly start snoring. So you may be a very healthy person, you never snored, and then maybe with age, or maybe you gain weight, or sometimes we're seeing even people, women go through pregnancy and then suddenly they develop apnea, they start snoring, and then it turns out that it's an apnea. So it's really fascinating where a product that you're just sleeping on and it's just tracking you over your lifetime can alert you to a medical condition that you may have to then take a further step on. And so that's something that we're pursuing now in the US, and that we'll want to target maybe in other parts of the world as well, so that people who have those conditions or maybe who want to get diagnosed at home, they could have other pathways to purchasing the product that may be reimbursed by insurance, prescribed by your doctor, right? So that's definitely down the path for us as a business.
That changes everything, I think. And it's all about data, correct?
Yes.
So the more data we collect, or you collect, both of us actually, as a consumer, and as you as a brand, will help to guide, first of all, not just the next generation of products, but also to make the existing product much better for people in different situations.
Yes.
We mentioned, obviously right now, when someone has any kind of sleep apnea, one of the most common solution is a CPAP machine.
Yes.
Right? And that's, I mean, if you've seen them.
It's quite invasive, yeah.
Right?
People don't love sleeping with them.
Exactly.
But they are the only way to actually manage your apnea, particularly people who, there's like levels. If you can think of it as like low, medium, heavy.
Of course.
People with heavier, high degrees of apnea, like they must. Like that's the only way really to treat it right now, but there's very low adherence. And so we're also thinking, like, how can we show you that this is actually helping you and help people adhere to these treatments?
Right.
And that's something of big interest, I think, like you said, to consumers, to doctors, but also healthcare systems, right? Governments around the world are thinking about how are we helping our people be healthier and live longer, and also that's going to lower our cost of covering their healthcare over time.
And I think from a preventative perspective, so a lot of these conditions can be prevented if is detected early.
Correct.
Right? So therefore some people may need a CPAP machine now, or they have a high, medium, whatever level of sleep apnea that they may be going through. But imagine if your product existed 20 years ago and you were able to detect it earlier and then make lifestyle changes in order for you to prevent it from happening in the future, It could be through movement, so many different things that you could do.
Which is exactly what we're targeting.
Exactly.
And that's my case, by the way. So because of how we operate at 8 Sleep, we're usually our first guinea pigs within the company.
Yes, of course,
and so I did a study that our clinical team was recruiting for, where they basically, what they do is they say, okay, you have to sleep on your pod at home, and then you're going to wear all of these sensors. And, basically, as if you were in a sleep clinic, you're at home, and it's like a sleep study. And they're using it to compare and benchmark, our accuracy, our metrics, et cetera. This was a few years ago. And what I found is that I actually have this slight hypopnea, something like that it's called. It's a type of apnea. It's just a breathing pattern, which my husband had told me that I was breathing in a weird way. And I just thought, like usually people, when someone tells you snore, it's like, you're crazy, I don't. Yeah. And the data showed that I was. And this was before we built our own snoring algorithm. And then you start seeing them on the pod of, when am I having those episodes that are like a type of snoring.
Right.
And like you said, for me, that if I don't take care of it, that could develop into something worse. That could be already inhibiting my ability to, my breathing, my oxygenation to my brain, even if it's very mild.
Of course.
And so exactly the case that you're saying, which is early detection, understanding of the things that I could do now. Is it positional when it's happening?
Yeah.
Is it, should I use mouth tape? Like, what are the things that could solve it? Experiment with different solutions at a stage when it's still very controllable before it gets to the point where I need to actually use a CPAP.
And again, like even outside of bed, you begin to explore other interventions outside of bed, the type of exercise that you do, be it breathing techniques. There's so much that you can do in order to prevent that. And that applies to many other things too. But I mean, this is huge, I feel. One thing that I love about the company is that you're always like 4, 5, 6, 7 years ahead. Like I bet right now that you're already developing like the pod 9 or something, so you're always like ahead, and you're kind of thinking, and you use data. It's not like, this looks good, let me try and do it. Now, but before we move into that, there's another addition that happened in 2025 that I got to be like a guinea pig for a short period of time, and then obviously it was everywhere. Now, because we started with the pod, we added the blanket, and now we added the pillow. And it does kind of something very similar. Now, that is intriguing for me because we focus on the main body, and now we're focusing on the head. Now, there is some interesting data around that, right?
Yeah.
So now the pillows have their own tower that supplies the water into them, and it is also thermal regulated. Why? Yeah.
It's a good question. Why? Well, most people want a cold head.
Yeah.
They don't want to be sleeping on a warm pillow, but our bodies are very warm, and our bodies are just sharing all of that heat with our environment all the time.
Yeah.
And that heat goes to our pillows as well as we're sleeping. If you're in bed, even for 6 hours, your heat is going to spread around everything. Your mattress, your sheets, your pillow, the person around you. There are parts of the world where people have their dogs sleeping with them. And so all of that is just adding to that heat, and that doesn't help your body stay within the range of those 2 degrees Celsius that it needs to stay in to stay comfortable. But as you said, the pillow now has its own temperature because that's what people were asking us for. So when we look at data, we're looking at data of how people are sleeping. We're also looking at data of what our customers are asking us for. And for years, they have been asking us, can you just find a way to keep my pillow cool?
Right.
Because maybe I like sleeping slightly warmer or neutral on the bed with the pod, but then I want my head to be colder.
Right.
I do that myself, right? I sleep at a warmer temperature under the covers, but then my pillow is cold, and that is the perfect balance. And so that's what we wanted. It's just extend this capability of the same temperature regulating technology to all parts of the body and give people the ability to personalize, because if you're comfortable during sleep, you're going to sleep better.
Yeah.
That's basically what it does with temperature regulation. Keep you comfortable, keep you at the right set points so that you don't have interruptions and you can get deeper rest.
And complete customization.
Yes.
Like, this is what I love, You're able to do these minor changes ongoing for you. And then beyond that, once you do those changes, the autopilot takes
on
over.
its own. Yeah.
It does it on its own. But then when you're making those yourself, you think, oh my God, this is such a sweet spot, And when you find that, it just changes everything.
It's like a protocol, and I think that's very similar to how people are approaching health now, and they're approaching like longevity and like all these. It's a protocol, and we're all trying to find what's the protocol for me.
Yeah.
Because we're all different.
We must, and that's why 8 Sleep is part of Limitless Human. So everyone that is on the program, this is what we recommend that they have as the main sleep intervention, sleep improvement, because there isn't anything there's nothing better. And it's not just the technology, it's not just the thermal, it's all of the wonderful stuff. And there are things that we haven't mentioned yet, which we'll come to in a minute. But it's non-invasive.
Yeah.
You're not taking any sort of drugs, you're not taking supplements, you're not taking anything like that. And you gradually improve it over time. And therefore it permeates into every part of your health journey. So it impacts your health span, it impacts your mental health, it impacts every aspect.
Everything.
Yeah.
Sleep is the most important pillar of health.
100%.
We've been saying that for years now. We've been building the company for like 11 years or longer now, but it truly is. And I think it's because we are unconscious while we're sleeping that for the longest time people have just treated it as second or third in line, and just I'll figure out, I'll just sleep, or I'll close my eyes and I'll sleep. But the reality is that there's a whole process, and that process means there's opportunity for optimization. And the environments in which we sleep normally are not really conducive to getting the best rest. There's lighting around us all day that is also sending the wrong signals to our circadian rhythm. There is a temperature, and we're not sleeping out in nature anymore, where we just kind of are one with nature, and our temperature regulates on its own. So we need to make sure that we make the adjustments that our body needs to get the best rest. Because like you said, if you don't sleep well, nothing else matters. Like, you could
100%.
be trying to optimize everything else about your health, but if you're not sleeping well, it's
the number one thing, for sure. Like, there's no doubt. And I think there's more and more data that's coming out that there's, no matter what you do, gene therapy, like, well, what is it that you can think of? There's nothing like having a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And people know it. It's simple as that. And I think there's a general misconception that night or sleep in general is a waste of time.
Yes.
At one point, not long ago, we used to brag about.
Yes, maybe even just 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. No, I don't need to sleep. I'll sleep 3 hours. This is that was the cool thing. Now it's shifting completely into, no, I value my 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. So we're finally making that move. And I think 8 Sleep played a role in that, not just because of the product, but also the education and the people that you have around you. And it shows across the culture of the company too. I haven't met anyone in the company that isn't amazing. They're super smart, kind people.
And we all sleep a lot, by the way. we compete. We have a competition.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've won it for the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So I say there's a really good founder market fit because I'm a really good sleeper. But you're right. It's a cultural movement, and that's always been something important for us. For me, that's part of my job. It's building the brand, but in order to build the brand, it's about getting people to really want to sleep and prioritize it, and to think of it as the most fundamental pillar of their health stack. And that's been 10 years in the making. The first 4 or 5 years that we were building 8 Sleep, no one cared about sleep. I can tell you, there was not the conversation that we see now, and I've seen that shift. And I think it's been because not only companies like ourselves and others that have been talking about it, but I think also the media landscape has shifted.
Yes.
There's more voices like yourself who are out there and who are experts in the field that can talk about why sleep matters, and people are connecting directly with these experts. And when we started the company, I always say that the conversation in the media at the time was all negative about sleep. It was only sleep deprivation, and it was very condescending, and you must sleep 8 hours or you're going to die. And that's not going to motivate people to make changes in their life, And now it's much more open. It truly is about getting people to go deep and understand why it matters, and facilitate the education through mediums that we're all using every day, like our phones and social media. And that message has resonated, and people are talking about sleep now a lot. People are sharing their sleep scores, and people are competing with their friends. And that's exactly what we've always wanted to see, because we know that if people care about their sleep, then the business takes care of itself. But it's really about advocating for the lifestyle change.
100%. And it's my life's mission. It's been here, focusing on that, on the adaptation aspect of it, because we spend so much time on the building our bodies, on movement, on exercise, which is obviously paramount, super important. But none of the strength that you gain happens during those times. It exclusively, irrevocably happens during sleep. Or during proper recovery, which happens during sleep. So that's where I think it hits home for me, and this is where I try to kind of continuously, sometimes make people sick of me talking about that, but I think there are still people that don't believe in that, because it's almost like a passive thing, right? When you sleep, you're not there, right?
Well, you feel like you're not in control. That's something else that we talk about often, which our role is to get people to understand that they actually do control, that there's no such thing as you being a bad sleeper for life, and that you were born and you were just given this curse of being a bad sleeper. That is not true.
Not true, yeah.
You can work on it just as much as your fitness.
Exactly.
Just like you can change your body physically and how it looks and how it works and the strength of it, and build muscle or lose muscle based on your actions and your lifestyle. You can do the same with your sleep.
100%. And it's as part of the movement now globally on health span, on sort of preventative, that whole approach into longevity space, and the craziness that is happening there. This is the cornerstone. There's nothing better that you could be focused on. If there's one thing you want to do in your health journey, and let's say nothing else, you can't do anything else, just this one thing, let it be sleep.
Yes.
And then you will feel the benefits across every aspect of your journey. There are obviously other things that you could do, but if there's only
that's the
one.
first one.
Yeah.
Yes.
If there's only one that you could do, it is the first one. And if there's the only thing you could do, this should be it, right?
So we talk often about this idea that if anyone wants to try, who's listening or watching, but it's the sleep stretch.
Yeah.
And this is a concept that Mateo, my co-founder and our CEO, he made up this idea of this sleep stretch or the sleep vacation. And it's just give yourself a week. And it's better than if you were going on vacation to try to quote unquote recover, because just in a week, try to sleep 1 hour more per day. So if you're getting 6 hours every night, which is more or less on average, 6.5 is what people get around the world, go to 7.5, just for that 1 week. And then by the end of the week, you've basically gained an extra night of sleep.
Right.
But also what happens is that you're probably going to feel better, and you're going to start understanding the difference that it makes just to how you feel. Forget about the long-term benefits of longevity that maybe you're not thinking about, but just how you feel. As you were mentioning before, your mood when you wake up, right? The ability to focus and concentrate during the day at work, to be present with your family. And it's probably going to convert you into the religion of sleep, and get you to actually adopt a different consistency and schedule in your life.
The number one thing that I preach is priority. To prioritize. What you prioritize, this is what will get most of your attention, and this is what will get optimized. So when you put it in your priority lists, then things start to change.
Yes.
And it goes just even beyond. So one of the things that I work on is just try to help people understand how certain behaviors, because when we think about longevity, when we're thinking about health span, it is not a solo journey. We're all in it together, right? If one of us is sick, we're all sick.
Yeah.
If one of us is angry, it eventually, spreads to everyone else. And here you've seen it, driving, the cars, all of that. It's a culture. Same with in Miami and many places around the world. Sleep is a direct impact of how people drive also.
100%.
And then you drive crazy, and then you impact 5 or 6 people that, it raises their cortisol, and they become, and then
you're honking at them.
Exactly. And then that passes on to the moment they arrive to the office, and then that passed on to that person, and that person passes it on to someone. So we have this we're a unit. We all are together. So it's not just about you, it's about everyone. We're all in it together. So it has so much value. And I think, like many things in life, we cannot think in silos. Like we are one at the end of the day. And part of it is just not just a personal responsibility, but also I would go as far as say like a social responsibility to sleep well.
Yes. And I think that's why you're seeing now all of these concepts pop up around cities being designed for wellness.
Exactly.
And that must include sleep.
Yep.
Noise levels, lighting.
Yep.
Right? And all these ordinances around, in residential areas there being no noise. What time does the trash come get picked up in the morning, and how much noise does it make, and is it disrupting people's sleep? And it's so key. You're so right that this is not just about you, but starting to think more communally, and starting to think also from like societies and governments thinking about how are people sleeping in our cities and our countries, and what is the effect of that in our healthcare systems, but also, when people measure now the happiness index of like where people are happy around the world, I'm pretty sure that there's a correlation with the quality of sleep on that.
I would concur 100%. This is one of the main reasons why I love living in this part of the world, because they prioritize that. There's so many mandates around wellness and longevity and living well.
Yes.
There's one of the top 10 of actually some of them are in the top 3 even when we're talking about the general health of the population across the board. So I love that. I'm going to go back to the pod a little bit because there are a couple of things we haven't mentioned yet. And then there are a couple of things I want to also know, just me personally, but hopefully everyone else will benefit from that too. So we spoke about thermal regulation. And we know now that the pod, the cover, and the pillow do that. And we know that the autopilot does an amazing job of making it incredibly personal to you across a time. So it continuously learns, right? And I love the data that it gives me in the morning, by the way, the HRV and all of that other stuff. So you really don't have to have your wearable if you didn't want to. So less technology around you. But it's not just that. It also has, and one of my favorite features, to be honest, is the base, right? And for those that don't know what that is, it's just like a little thin thing that goes under the mattress. Remember, with 8 Sleep, and I think most people don't know this, with 8 Sleep, you don't have to change your mattress. The mattress remains the same, and it's the pod that goes over it. It's like think of it as a fancy sheet that you put over your mattress, and then the little I don't know what's it called exactly. What do you call it?
It's the base. Yeah, but it's just 5 centimeters. Goes between your bed frame and your mattress. You don't have to change your bed frame. If you have like a beautiful piece of furniture, you don't want to change it. You don't have to.
And it disappears. It just goes under it. It's nothing. And then what it does, though, is what is awesome, right? So again, the autopilot, and correct me if I'm wrong, the autopilot, as it senses that you are snoring, it lifts your head gently, super gently. And it does it with me. Like, sometimes when I'm not maybe super asleep, I feel it kind of gently raising me. And it's just phenomenal. Like, it adds so much time. And it tells you in the morning how much efficiency it added to your sleep, but making these minor adjustments. And remember, it's not just the head, it's also the feet. So it's all on the same time. So what is your experience with that for yourself?
Well, like I mentioned to you with this kind of snoring that we found out that I have, you're right. It's very helpful because for people of all degrees of snoring, it'll detect and it'll also label it. Do you have low, mild, heavy, like how much time of the night you're spending in snoring as well, which is a very important metric to have.
100%.
Because you may snore, but maybe it's just 5 minutes a night.
Right.
Or people that may be spending 97% of their night snoring, right?
Yeah.
We have people within our team. Like within our team, people working at the company, we know everything about everyone's sleep. Yeah. So it's really fascinating because then you can take action through the elevation. And that's one of the very important things that we do at 8 Sleep. So we love data, but then it's not just about data, it's about actual changes. What can we do to mitigate that effect, to stop from happening? Anything that's going to interrupt your sleep. Snoring is a big one. So the cover has the sensors that identifies if you're snoring. And in real time, then the base can lift up. It has different degrees. So if you're a light snorer, it'll incline 5 degrees. If you're a heavier snorer, it may have to incline more.
Right.
And it detects once you stop snoring. Yeah. So that's the other important thing. It won't stay elevated. It can go back to the flat state. I myself, actually, I don't sleep flat. So we also have different positions like anti-gravity sort of position where you can sleep with a slight elevation on your head and your feet to just like reduce some pressure on your lower back. There are people who may want to elevate their feet area even more. Maybe they have like circulation issues or now there's also a lot of conversation on the science behind sleeping with a slightly elevated head because it may help that lymphatic drainage. And so it's just part of that personalization we were talking about is experimentation, one which we're huge fans of because people may like to experiment with different things, see in the data what worked for you and what's leading to better sleep, and then being able to have that every night.
And it does it automatically. You don't have to worry about it.
Automatically.
Yeah, it learns on its own. You don't have to do anything. You literally just plug it in, and that's it. Like you put your mattress on it and you sleep, and then automatically it starts. Now you can, however, do like a reading mode.
Yes, you can then do it manually, right? There are people who may like to read in bed, they may like to watch TV. And we've always set this also as one of our principles when we're designing our technology, which is we're not going to come here and like tell people, don't read in bed or don't watch TV. We know people are going to do it, right? That's just life. Let's give them the tools where, do you want to make it some automatic thing where like once you've fallen asleep, it goes down to your sleep position, or like just how can we help them? And how can we help them embrace the right habits without getting in the way of the life that they've already built?
Right. And this doesn't mean that, that particular life is no good. There's no big deal about sort of reading or even watching TV, especially if it is something that is not stimulating way too much.
Yeah, we just ran a study on this, actually. Our team ran a study exactly what you're saying, which is what is the content that you're consuming? Exactly. There's all that conversation around don't use your phone in bed. And what they found is that it's not about the phone itself, but especially before bedtime. Of course, it's different if you're grabbing your phone in the middle of the night, but it's not about spending the time on the phone. It's what is the content and how much is the content engaging you? And there is a big difference for people who are consuming heavy and negative news, or maybe they have something really stressful at work they're dealing with right before going to sleep. That's going to make it much harder for your body to regulate and fall back asleep. Like you said, there's cortisol spikes, there's stressors. But if you're watching something relaxing, right, or something maybe a little boring, or something that's making you laugh, has no effect to the degree that they've made us think in the media where they demonize everything.
Yeah, no, 100%. Social media is one of the worst thing you could do before bed. I've always said to people that, especially like with TikTok, like platforms like TikTok,
the overstimulation.
And then you're getting like maybe, I don't know, I don't know the exact number, but let's say you're scrolling into like 25, I don't know how many you could scroll per minute, to kind of watch, and you're getting like whatever, let's say 25 different reels or videos or whatever, you're getting literally 25 different emotions, like this is crying, this is laughing, this is falling, this is whatever, and some news, some this, and your brain is constantly getting these like different, and then your body feels it, and then you're going to put your head back and it's not going to help.
It's not going to help.
But if you're watching a silly sitcom or like something, calming or whatever, then that actually, for me,
may help you.
I think it may help you,
Yes.
right? That's another thing, which is awesome, that I love about the bass, and the simplicity of it and how powerful it is. But it doesn't end there, because there are aspects of sleep that I think it's important for people to kind of understand in general. Because we talked about REM, we talked about deep, and we talked about the quality of sleep. And we talked about some of the things that disrupt while you sleep. One of the key aspects of sleeping is actually how quickly you fall asleep, right? And then you've done something about that too, right? So on the bass now, with Pod 5, you're able to play like binaural sounds
Yep.
and white noise and even Huberman's self. Boy, I haven't done that yet.
You can have Andrew Huberman speak to you
Yes.
on the bass.
I don't know if I want Huberman in my bedroom, but no, I love the guy. So you've also, helped, because one of the things that the pod does is that, because we know to fall asleep, your body needs to regulate within these 2 degrees.
Yeah.
And then when you fall asleep, the temperature changes throughout the night and all of that. But it's important that your body temperature drops by about 2 degrees to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So that's one. But the other is obviously stimulation and
Yes.
thinking. Some people, we're all built differently, and depending on our days and what we've done just before bed, be it TV or reading or writing that last email or whatever it is, it's hard. So getting an aid that is completely natural, that you're not taking melatonin, you're not doing anything of that, but you're using your natural environment, because we react to sound, to light, to temperature, to all of these different things. You've targeted temperature. You always advise people, just like I do, about how dark the room
Yeah.
should be,
The darkest possible. For
exactly,
Sure.
right? And then sound.
Yes.
Right? So what does it do exactly?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to exactly what you just said of there's key environment factors. And as you mentioned, light, temperature, noise. So you want a room that is cool, dark, and quiet. However, on the quiet side, the mind plays so many tricks, right? Right when you're about to go to bed, you have so many thoughts.
Right.
It's just human. And we're processing a lot of information. And specific sounds or breathing exercises or meditations or these NSDR, non-sleep deep rest protocols
Yes.
that may help you get into a calmer state and get your brain to focus on a frequency and a pace and a sound that is going to help you fall asleep.
Right.
That was the thinking. And we thought, well, we already have a base, and what else can we do? How can we tackle some of these other environmental factors?
Right.
Because we have so many other disruptions, not only around us. You may have everything quiet down in your room. Maybe you turned off every device, but it's still your mind that is
Yeah.
playing you tricks.
Yeah. There are studies that show that very few people, it can be in their DNA. They're not able to sort of decompose whatever is happening or happened during the day, like your thoughts, to kind of file them, if you like. But every one of these studies show that if you use the right sound for you, be it binaural or be it white noise or whatever it is, it actually helps immensely to fall asleep quicker. And the quicker you fall asleep, the more likely for you to have a better quality sleep
Yes.
throughout the night.
Yeah.
Do you use it yourself?
The sound?
Yes.
Yes. So the way that I have it set up in my bedroom is that as I said, I'm a really good sleeper. So thankfully, I don't need much sleep aids other than the temperature. For me is a really game changer.
Yeah.
But what it does is that the sound, I've picked a sound that for me is relaxing, which is a sound. We have different types of sounds, and we also have ambient sounds. And so I have a sound that is like a crackling fire, like if there was a chimney,
Right.
which makes no sense having a chimney in Miami. But I love that sound. It's very relaxing
Yeah.
for me. Around 8 p.m., it turns on its own. The bass goes to a relaxed position. So when I get in bed, I can do those final things on my phone, but
Yeah.
it's kind of sitting a little bit upright. So when I enter my bedroom, everything is perfectly laid out for me. There is the right relaxing sound that gets my mind into a certain state. There is the bass in the right position for me to just sit down and like relax in bed for 5 minutes. There is the right temperature, of course, between my bed and my pillow and my blanket.
Right.
So it's just like, it's like a concierge, right? It's like going to a 5-star hotel and them doing a turn down service. And I don't
Yes.
have to take care of anything. The lighting in the room as well. I don't use any overhead lighting. It's just lamps on the bedside. And it's like very, more towards yellow orange lighting, very low.
Exactly, I was gonna say.
And that's like my cave.
And
you
it's all
want
based
your
on
perfect
science.
cave, and it's all based on science.
All based on science. It's not like just your personal preference. A lot of it is science-based, which is
correct.
awesome.
Yes.
It's awesome. I love that. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to touch. First of all, I want to say something about Ramadan specifically, because I know that these catering to a particular region is very important for the brand. And
Yes.
this is one of the reasons why I love working with the brand so much, because you're very thoughtful about which market you go into and what do you do for that market. It's not just bulldozing into it. It's just because it works in one place, it's going to work everywhere. You're very conscious about that. And then we have Ramadan around the corner. And I think, part of this, hopefully we'll be able to show during Ramadan to help people that have the pod use it a little bit better. And those that don't, maybe decide to use it for Ramadan to help their sleep. So one of the tips that I normally say to people when it comes to Ramadan, and this is something that maybe you would share with your friends or people that do fast during Ramadan, is to change the setting because when you have your pod, you set up the time you want to sleep, the time you want to wake up, all of that. So you kind of have these parameters, and then the autopilot does its thing. But for Ramadan, I would shift that. Mm-hmm. I would change those timings so you allow the autopilot to optimize whatever time that you are in bed. That's paramount. Don't forget to do that during Ramadan, And so many of the people that I work with and the people that are on the program, etc., most likely they forget to do that. So I wanted to say that to make sure that they do that.
Yeah.
Like this. And then obviously there are other interventions that could be done around that. One of which with Ramadan is food, because you eat and then you go to bed because you want to try to get as much sleep as possible, and that's not great. There are a few things that could wake you up at night, and one of them is blood sugar and the other one is cortisol, and then these two are related to the meal,
digestion
and the meal that you've just had. So be mindful of that, because people have the tendency that their last meal before going to bed is usually sugary. The one early, like late night, early morning before light comes up. So ideally, you should try to move into something a little bit more nourishing. Maybe more on the protein side, so they kind of sustain you throughout instead of you waking up a little bit later on. But using the autopilot as your number one supporter during Ramadan for sleep is key. Yeah. It has so many capabilities. Don't sort of skip that part. You already have the amazing technology in your room. Just adjust it so it works better for you during Ramadan.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, something that people should really benefit from. And I think it's one of the key things that will make Ramadan different if you're able to sleep better.
Yeah.
And then you come out of it different. It's not, you don't gain weight, you don't lose weight, you still have the same energy that you need to. You could still work out, all of that different stuff that most people struggle with during the holy month. So use the autopilot. The autopilot is a great help during Ramadan.
Yeah. There's one feature I would recommend as well, which is you can tag if you had a late meal. Yeah. I think that's a great one to use during Ramadan, because you are having that late meal. It's a heavier meal, of course, because you're, ingesting all your calories at that time.
Right.
And so that tells autopilot, okay, this person had a late meal, we have to adjust.
Right.
And adjust the temperature on its own based on the data of whatever it knows you need, if you've ever tagged it in the past that you had a late meal. But also, that's the power of the data of our entire user base.
Exactly.
It's learning. This is where the application of AI is becoming so fascinating for us as a company, because it truly is learning from all the anonymized data of all the users that have ever tagged that they've had a late meal. And it's like an experiment. It's observed what is the right temperature schedule for a person who has had a late meal. Right. And then it compares to people most similar to you in age, in gender, in what they usually like in terms of temperature preferences, and it delivers it in real time.
So in addition to these, the other thing that I say to people is that you need to shift your circadian cycle. So because we sleep, people that are fasting, they sleep during daylight to make sure the room is absolutely dark. So you're allowing the body to, the body is super adaptive also, with the help of the autopilot. And you being intentional and mindful about what you do, be it on food, be it, all of these small things, you have to shift that too. And then the results are incredible. I think these are really, really valuable tips for people that they have them at their fingertips. Like, it's not that difficult to do, just for you to, because that's the biggest worry that most people have here when it comes to Ramadan, is that I need to go through this incredibly, soul cleansing, so cultural, incredibly deep religious experience. But then it's peppered with these inconveniences that could easily be overcome if they're done intentionally, and especially with data science and technology. I think one of the things that I'm really, really keen to know is that what's next for 8 Sleep.
What is next? As you
whatever
said,
you can share.
Yeah, we're always a few years ahead, right?
I know, exactly.
I think that's just the game in technology, especially, is like you have to think ahead and build for what's next. So we are, of course, developing new products always. Anytime that you'll ask me that question, there's always something we're working on.
Course, yeah.
New features as well. So a big part of it is also leveraging the platform we already have with the pod and continuing to deliver new features to our existing user base. So if you've already had the product, then how do you get new things? Last year we launched hot flash mode for people who experience hot flashes, which can occur beyond people in perimenopause.
Yeah, except for everyone.
Everyone can get these hot flashes at any time. And so we wanted to have this rapid cooling availability within the product. We launched nap mode, which could be an amazing feature for Ramadan as well.
Yeah.
And so this ability to also have these shorter temperature regulating cycles that are not a full night of sleep.
Yes.
And so that's right in the app. And so we're building on that. We're looking right now through clinical studies, which is where we start feature developing. What is happening with the women during pregnancy, looking at the variations in temperature from when they start pregnancy to when they're in the 3rd trimester, which is very, very different. There's a huge variation of degrees of how they want their temperature to change. So how can we do that automatically for them? So that's some of the stuff that we'll release this year. And of course, continuing this path for anything that is more regulatory medical device type work that takes time, but it's very important for us. I think we want to be able to have the product be available for people beyond just the consumer route, and get healthcare systems, doctors to embrace it and see it as something that's actually delivering the right outcomes for the users.
I'm really excited to what's ahead. I think, you, as I said earlier, amazing company. I heard a rumor, and then you could kind of debunk it completely. Are you doing something for pets?
Oh my God. Well, we should.
Yeah, right.
I think at some point we will. I think we get a lot of questions around that, pets, because in America we do have a lot of people that sleep with their dogs, and sometimes people have huge dogs, and their dogs fall in love with, especially the big dogs, the temperature and the cooler temperature, and now they can't kick them out of the bed because they want to sleep on the cool bed. So at some point we will. We've definitely had prototypes of that in our San Francisco office, where we have our hardware team that develops products. So those pet pods, or however you want to call them, exist.
Pods. There it is. It's catching on already.
So at some point we'll release those, yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me. It's always great to also share more with people about what we're building and the why, which is what we care most about, is the impact that we can have and get more people to embrace this lifestyle of sleep and get them to just whatever we can do to get them closer to that ideal night of sleep.
100%. And I'm really looking forward to continue to support the brand and do more for the region. I think this region is poised to be the center of wellness, for the world. And I think it's the best place for 8 Sleep to be. So thank you again. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Of course, thank you.
All right, you guys, you've heard it here first. Thank you for joining me, and look forward to seeing you next time.